Hey everybody, Nelson Gunsmithing, another video. This one was very requested from folks. This is a Rock Island Armory M200. It's made in the Philippines, chambered 38 special. Now these are not great guns by any means. It was 220 bucks I think shipped. I can already see some pretty rough cast marks, but I wanted to get into it as a gunsmith and kind of show you guys what one of these things looks like, and why I would not consider this a solidly built duty gun. They have been described as great tackle box guns. You know, you load it up with some snake shot, maybe a couple of wad cutters, but this is not something I'd rely on. So first things first, we're going to, I've already shown you we're clear, but I always try and do that first. Let's look at the timing here. So with the cylinder open, I'm just going to draw back the hammer. We're going to looking for that catch to drop sub flush with the frame before it locks back. And it is. Now I can tell you already, because it's coming up so fast, there's going to be a lot of cylinder drag, because I can see the hand moving long after the bolt catch has locked up. So right there, what you're going to see is over time, you can see a lot of lines. There, you see how it drags? And that's going to accelerate wear on the gun, wear on the parts. If it was perfectly timed, it would come up almost perfectly in sync with your cylinder notches. So now we're going to check the timing with the double action, and again, it should drop completely clear. You see how fast it comes up? Boy, that's heavy too. Ooh, and it seized there. That's not good. Yeah, y'all see that? 2, 3, 4. Oh man, 4. That's the same one right there. Boy, that is not great. And just, man, the pull there goes up to a good 14 pounds. That is not a great start. But, I mean, it goes. But you saw a couple of, oh, boy, my wrists are sore already. So, I mean, it'll go. It goes bang. But that indicates excessive cylinder wear. The other thing I'm looking at here, see if I can get a good angle there, is I'm looking for my cylinder gap. Now the cylinder gap doesn't look too bad. But you see when I got the trigger pulled how it jumps forward there? I'm going to take it back. The cylinder gap's very cattywampus here. So I'm holding so I can see it now. So on that cylinder, it is almost dragging against the forcing cone. I guarantee you if this thing had 20 or 30 rounds through it, it would not pull through that, it would not turn over that chamber. Alright, so then let's look at our cylinder. Let's look at our yoke. All right. No movement front and back. That's good. Well, maybe a little bit there. Yeah, no, it's got a little bit. So that tells me that the yoke retention screw is not properly installed. Yeah. Pivots freely. Let's get zoomed in here, guys. I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So all I'm doing is I'm just holding the yoke open with one hand. And you can see there's a little bit of run out. It's not bad. I've seen way worse, but you can see there's visibly run out here on this rod. After your rod's a little sticky, it's not bad, but that is rough. Okay, let's zoom back out here. Alright, so we're already not looking great. We've got an issue here with the cylinder hitting the forcing cone. We have an issue here with the timing, and these two may be related. That's one of those things that's kind of hard to dial it in. It could be just that one of those cylinders is dragging. Alright, so you know what? Let's just go ahead and tear into this guy. Because I want to see what we got here. Now, I tell you too, it's a really bad sign when this gun is new from the factory and you can see a little bit of knurling on the screws there. Makes me wonder if this is actually new from the factory or if somebody sent me a new one. Because if this is new, it was badly assembled, and if it's not new, I got one that somebody else was already into the guts into. Now again, I mean, I paid very little for this weapon, so I mean, these grips off of here. Here we go. That is not the most robust hammer spring I've ever seen. Alright, there we go. Sorry about that. I've got a tool usually for these, and it's on loan to somebody. The strut doesn't look great. It doesn't look bad, but it doesn't look great. Little metal parts tray here. I've never done one of these before. Normally I'd take off the side plate. This kind of reminds me of those Italian Tanfoglio Brescias, you know, the little 22s. Oh wow, do you see how loose that was? I didn't put any torque on that at all. Yep. Jeez. No thread locker. No nothing. Again, almost no force whatsoever. Good Lord. I'm really starting to think that I got this from, that this one was secondhand. Yeah, I see tire marks on the extractor rod. Somebody had this apart already. Well, okay. They shipped them as new. Alright, I'm going to check something real quick. Had to confirm something real quick about thread pitch. And I was right, but, you know, as folks are starting to learn, hopefully you're watching this channel, you're enjoying it. I like to go real slow and double check myself. I frequently pause so I can go look something up online. Oh boy, again, almost no effort on that screw. Now that is supported with this little plunger detente here. That feels like that is fixed in place. I'll take a look at that later. All right. Oh, it's on there good and tight. So that cylinder is on there so tight I cannot get it off. I went and hit it with some heat and some coil. We're gonna let it soak for a little bit. I may have to give it like an acetone bath or something. I'm not sure. Anyway, so onwards and upwards. So I mean that means that cylinder was installed either with super glue or it was torqued so hard I can't disassemble it. All right, so we're gonna get the side plate screws off. Very carefully here. There it is. All right. Sit down here. So here's what we're looking at here. So I can see how rough this metal is, and the finish and this parkerization, when it goes on really thick, that's always a sign that they're trying to cover up manufacturing defects, because you don't have to polish or smooth metal as much before you get it finished. Love that. Nice piano wire spring there. This is the transfer bar. There we go. Oops. Oh yeah, I mean, so I'm already seeing some wear on this thing. Strike face of the hammer. God, that is rough looking. I mean, can you see how rough those machine marks are? And asymmetrical. Oh boy, I can tell you that one's not going to be fun to reinstall later. Boy, that thing is stiff. That is a surprisingly robust spring. Let's see if we can just get the trigger off then. There we go. Wow, yeah, that is a heavy spring there. I don't understand why that's under so much tension. That's just a trigger return spring. You can see some of the support posts here. Get that in focus. See how it's a little crooked and how kind of warped they are? Not good machine work. There's a little spring there. Yep, there it is. That's your bolt catch. This actually doesn't look too bad. Yeah, and you can just see there's just a lack of attention to detail. If you look right here, you can see how rough these machine marks are. And this spring here, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get that out of there. Boy, that is just... Woo! There she... So there's our single action, right? Boy, and as you can see, there's no meat on that sear. Again, let me try and get zoomed in here as much as I can. I want you guys to see this. Sorry. And there's very little there on that sear. Almost no engagement. And then for the double action mode, see how it bears up on that arm there? And there's no polishing on the underside of that arm at all. Like no good polishing, it's just junk. Let's see if I can get, there we go. Even though that's a major bearing surface. So this thing's already not off to a great start. Piano wire springs, weird design choices. I don't like how that cylinder face works. So, all right, we got a little work we got to do here. I'm going to see what I can do to give this the old fluff and buff, do a trigger job on it, and see if I can make this a little more salvageable. Okay guys, sorry for the jump. So it was a lot of work. Solid hour and a half. I mean, this is like doing a trigger job on any other gun, except there is a lot less room for error here. I smoothed out some of the faces that were really chewed up. Got that nice and polished. I recut that sear engagement. It's really hard to tell here on the video, but that is it's a little deeper notch, a little better engagement. Polished up some other spots. And you can see here, I mean, look at the machine marks. You can see that's where the hammer was wearing against the frame. I mean, so I'll walk through how to put this back together, but this is what I want to emphasize to you guys. You know, I was able to get this one up and running. I'm still not sure I would call it good to go as a duty grade gun. Just because of how loosely some of these parts fit in here. And how easily this thing has seized up on me a couple times. Again, now that I've polished and cleaned it, it's working a bit better. So, I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to pull it back together for you guys, though. So, here we go. First, so I've already got the bolt catch reinstalled and the spring behind it. And that spring just sits flush against that wall and recesses into a little pocket there. And I reinstalled this spring. And it was a bear and a half to get it off and on again. So, all right. So next we're just going to drop in the trigger. And part of the trick here, as we drop the trigger in, is that I want to catch. Now, grab a pointer here. The spring right here is your trigger reset spring. There are there's a pin on the back side of this trigger, and as you can see, right there, you can see that's where it sits. So that's what I wanted to do there, was get that in, and it's good firm. It's still way too heavy, I think, but I don't think it's gonna kill anything. I don't think it's gonna hurt anything either. And that's just a little spacer spring. I couldn't figure out what the heck that was for. I finally went and looked it up. That is just a spacer spring that keeps that in line, I guess. Pretty sure that's a mostly redundant part, but you know, let's just say it's like Gunsmithing, heart surgery, you know, it's okay if there's bits left over. I'm kidding. Alright. Next, we're going to pull the hammer back a little bit. Pull the trigger back and install the hammer. And that drops in just super easy. Oh, and I already have the cylinder latch in place too. And that there's nothing holding that. That just sits in there. Nothing to it. Next, we have the transfer bar. That goes on this top notch. Okay. Pardon me. Goes on the bottom notch. Sits in right there. Okay. This part's just takes a little finagling. We're going to take our hand. Okay, and I'm going to get it on that peg. There we go. Just wanted to get that spring behind it. Now, we do just a little wiggle and a jiggle. The hand needs to sit behind that little post there. That's what keeps it in line. Oh, this is kind of a cool tool. I got this at the SIG Academy, a little souvenir. I probably paid $5 for that little thing, and honestly, I could have made it myself in 15 seconds, but I wanted it. It's also got a special pokey thing on the other side for a specific part, or a specific application for SIG's handgun line. That was a memento, you know? It's better than buying coffee mugs. Okay. This part is also a little tricky. It's another one of those situations where you got to do 2 or 3 things at once. We have our spring in place. The spring, this little spring here, whoops, see, that's magnetized. This spring here pushes against that post there. Not the sturdiest way to do it, but it works. So that means that we've got to get this lined up. Get it going in that slot, and now you can see on the other side, that slot there, that is how it engages your cylinder stop. Cylinder stop? No. Whatever. And it's also got a little notch here, so you have to push this in from top to bottom. Let's see if I can get it on the first try here. Sorry, pulled it out of frame there for a second. But yeah, there we go. You can see how it's reciprocating there. Alright, now these 2 screws, I already put a little Loctite on the threads there. Sorry, trying to get in the habit of not trying to get out of the habit of going completely vertical like that. I want you guys to be able to see what I'm doing. Really awkward gunsmithing like this. Alright, there we go. Alright. Go back and tighten that first one. There we go. Cool, that's still working. Everything's working properly still. Okay. Next, we're going to go ahead and reinstall the cylinder. Now, as I said, I tried to get this thing apart. I could not do it. It has been torqued onto there by somebody with entirely too much strength. So we're just going to go ahead and put that back in. There we go, just like that, very easy. Me. And again, there's already a little Loctite on that one, because you guys remember how loose that was when I popped it off. One thing I did like is that this is captured. Makes it a lot simpler to install and uninstall. there we go, that's it. So funny story, I had this thing put back together. I went to install the grips, and I was shocked. See if I can get this set up for you guys. I was shocked to see that this thing wouldn't work with the grips installed. The reason is I had the strut in backwards. Apparently it's possible to do that, and the strut was hitting the grip screw. So I don't know, maybe that's a safety mechanism. You know, you pop your grips off, you turn the strut around. Actually, you know, come to think of it, that might be a design. If I tell you, if I found out I did that and I was the engineer, I'd be like, yeah, that's totally how I meant it to work. All right. And these are just cheapy plastic combat grips. I mean, you know, they've got a good texture to them. The ergonomics aren't terrible. But, you know, these are not like a couple of Miklik. Wait, let's just fit just a little loose. Double check some here real quick. Got a little pro tip there for you. If you get grips that are kind of stuck, just a couple sharp wraps with the lightweight mallet will often do the trick. No, okay, that's how it sits. All right. Well, these felt a little loose for some reason. Not sure why, but you know. Well, I know why. It's because it's a $220 revolver. There's one check. Well, so here we go. So now when we see it's working. So you can short stroke this though. There you go. So if you get on this too fast, see, it is possible to short stroke these, and then it starts acting really weird. See. So you would have to make sure you're in the habit of running this good and authoritatively. But you also notice I fixed the issue with it seizing. It's still a little rough on that one. There's one cylinder that hangs just a bit, but it's not as bad as it was where it stopped cold. There are two things I have to do with this. The first one is I have to do a final confirmation with the alignment gauge that I have. The second one is I need to cut the forcing cone. It's very hard for you to make out, but the forcing cone is actually cut at an angle. It's not true to the cylinder, and it's supposed to be about 3 to 5 thousandths of an inch, and this is almost touching the cylinder. I don't have my feeler gauges handy because somebody stole them, Casey. But yeah, that's maybe a thousandth, if that. So I'm gonna have to go get the proper tools to cut the forcing cone out, fit it properly. So there you go. I mean, from a gunsmith's perspective, this is why I would not call this like a solid duty gun. I've turned this into a performer. You know, I mean, this will go. I'm sure this will go bang quite a bit. But the amount of work it took, and it's still not great. You know, I mean, you can still short stroke it. There's still a little hitch on these cylinders. You know, and like I said, for what it is, for a cheap, not lightweight, but for a cheap, low-cost tackle box gun, for a gun to keep locked up at your cabin maybe, I don't know. It would not break my heart if this thing got lost, if I dropped it overboard in a lake. And I'm sure it'd be really handy for dealing with varmints. But, gosh, guys, you know, I just am not sure I would trust this one with my life, even having worked on it the way I have, just because, as much of anything, I'm looking how soft those metals are. I'm feeling how they fatigued, how badly they were engineered. There's only so much I can do. There's only so much material I can take off of the gun before it starts becoming compromised, and this thing is going to wear down very quickly, I'm sure. So yeah, you know, if you were really hard up and you literally only had $220 in your pocket, okay, you know, these could be made to work. But again, and you know, you'd want a gunsmith to look at it. As this thing came off the line, I don't think it would have been acceptable. So there it is, guys. The Rock Island Armscorp 38 Special, one of the worst self-defense rounds on the market right now at that too. 380 is almost marginally better. But if you gotta know, if you gotta have it, there you go. Thanks for watching, guys.